Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast with Veda Austin and myself, Seth Pruzansky. And this episode is going to be entitled "The Fluidity of Emotions." Is that what we're going to call it? No,
That's great.
okay.
That's great.
It's
Yeah.
essentially the fluidity of emotions, and the goal here is to ask some big questions. What are emotions? What are our feelings? Because emotions really have such a liquid element to them. There's so much like when we think of emotion or feeling, there's such a fluidity, a water element to it. So we want to get into this. We're going to get into other things related to it, but we're going to start the flow with the big question. What is or what are emotions? Just to put it
That
on
is a
you.
very big. No pressure. I'm not. I'm not here to give some very formal answer to that because I'm not. I'm not going to do that. But we start. We start feeling from the moment. I really feel like from when we're in the womb. It's like some people have memories of what it was like when they were inside their mother's womb and what they experienced. So often it's an experience that and allows us to have a reaction, and that reaction usually comes after the emotion. So it's very interesting because we trying to decipher where emotions start from, and not so much the question of why, because I think because we're emotional, it makes us have such a rich experience of life. But sometimes I think, well, that we can get into that part later, but I was going to go down the track of how often I hear in my children, they say, I can't help how I feel. And it's very interesting because many people feel that they can't help how they feel. And we're so impacted by other people's experiences, thoughts, feelings, words. And we allow everybody to impact how we feel. And there's no sovereignty of our own emotion going on. We're like a little boat just kind of like being thrown around on a big wave all the time. So when we're little and we were in our mother's womb, and we're very insulated, but we were also impacted by what our mother was experiencing. And so emotions are such a fascinating topic because it's one of the reasons I'm so glad to be alive, because I get to feel. For me, I love to feel the most I've ever felt. And I've never, ever been afraid of being hurt. Although I can appreciate that many people have not had that experience the same as me. But I've been hurt many times. I've experienced very, very deep pain. But in that, I've always seen and experienced myself coming out of that deep pain stronger for it. And I've observed that what I do is I tend to talk about my emotions. I talk about what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking. And I've always found that dilutes the intensity of what I'm holding inside, and it actually makes it more bearable, more easy to cope with. And then finally it slowly starts to dissipate, kind of like evaporation. And so I've always found that I'm much, much more afraid. If I'm going to be afraid of anything, it's of not really fully living my life in its most highest expression. I'm more afraid of kind of getting to the end of my life and going, oh, I wish I'd done that, or what if. At least if I have the courage to live and be open-hearted and love fully and truly and be my most true authentic self, even if that requires getting hurt. And just actually, I was having a conversation with someone just earlier about the reason that we get hurt is because of unmet expectations.
Mm.
So if our
Yeah.
expectations are not met of someone or like a work thing or whatever our thing is that feeling of, oh, that person didn't, that, it's not a conscious thought, they did not meet my expectations. But the truth is that sometimes we do expect people to read our minds. We expect people to love like we do. And we expect people to know what we want. And yet we're not willing to tell them what that is or how we're feeling. So part of emotions is also about being able to express them in a way which 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 is very authentic to us. And each person has an individual way of doing that.
Mm. Wow. So you just got into all kinds of. I'm like getting giddy because I love this topic for so many
Yeah.
reasons. But what I love most about it is that you and I both have a pretty unique perspective on it because we've gone through so much and because we've
Yeah.
been analyzing and perceiving and coming to terms with and shedding and embracing and just like the full gamut of processing feelings, emotions, thoughts, all of it in our own way, but through so much of it that it's enriched our ability to communicate, you and I, because we
Mm.
both have this, and I say this with all humbleness, but we have like a very wisdom oriented perspective that is a result of real life experience that gives us the ability to know our own emotional states within and then be able to communicate the differences and the similarities with each other, which creates intimacy. We were saying like we've never even met in person, but we are able to communicate with each other in such a profound way that it gives us a level of intimacy that anybody could have, but most people don't. And this is what this is about. This is why we're talking about these things. This is why we're going over this, because we want more and more people to be able to have closer connections, whether you call it intimacy or what, like closer connections, real connections, honest, fluid connections, where
Yeah.
there's a reciprocal give and take of energy, of everything, emotion, feeling. And this, to me, is richness. This is value. This is what, and I totally went off the track of what I was going to say because this is how
We
excited I am about it. So, if you have anything you want to say about it, say it. And then when I come back, I'm going to launch into some life changing stuff for the listeners. So,
Okay, good. Well, no, I was going to just say about bringing a water aspect into this. It's like so many of our emotions relate to water. Like we have a wave of emotion. When we feel like shy, we see someone we like, and sometimes we get like all flushed. It's a flush, that happens.
yeah.
And then and then I really, when I think about love, you kind of have everything is it happens in this kind of wave, and it's very magnetic. And a lot of people don't really associate water and magnetism together, but they do. Water is very affected by magnetic pull and by magnets. And so there's some ways that some people kind of enliven water using magnetism. And so we have iron in our body, and it also has that aspect of like there's a literal magnetism that
Literal.
that can happen. And I've often thought in the context of water and people and attraction and energy in a unique from a unique perspective, in that I think we have this liquid within us, the liquid energetic of ourselves, and then we have. I don't think it just stops at the liquid. I mean, heart math tells you that you can measure how far the heart, uh,
The
what is it,
field,
the
the toroidal
electromagnetic
field.
field goes out to.
Yeah.
So I also think that one of the reasons that we can feel energy is that it doesn't just stop at the liquid; it goes out into this kind of atmospheric energetic that we have, which is received through water. And so and I also think that we have our own kind of patterns. So, I have a few friends that love to do different things with cymatics. And what's interesting about watching cymatics is it's sound affecting water. And you see all these beautiful geometries forming and moving very quickly. One beautiful geometry will be kind of for one specific sound and things like that. But I also think we are our own kind of kaleidoscope of different moving geometries, and that happens within the water every time we speak. Every time we have a big feeling of emotion, because there's people that can't speak, they're mute. But that doesn't mean they don't have emotions, because they do. They have so many emotions too. And then that brings us into, just because a living entity can't speak the way we do, doesn't mean that they don't feel. Like animals, they have their own way of communicating. Trees have their own way of communicating. Doesn't mean they don't feel just because they don't communicate the way we do. But the way we do, I have found to be very, very fascinating, very fluid, very in relationship to water. So when I kind of think that when two people have that there's this term, that love at first sight. And not that many people have experienced it, because often it's lust at first sight. But
yes. You know what?
Yeah.
And maybe let's go back to that after what you're going to say, because let's touch on that. That's an important thing. Lust at
Okay.
first sight, the honeymoon phase, and what happens. But go ahead.
Yeah. 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 Well, because I think the love part is when in relation to the water and that kind of cymatic area that I was talking about, I think we have our body creates a very specific pattern for periods of time until you have a huge shift or change of perception or change of whatever it is in our lives, and then that will change. Perhaps it's easier to understand it as a song. I often think that everybody has their own song, and then when something really crazy changes in their life, or they have a huge shift in perception or a big spiritual awakening, or something terrible happens that really affects them dramatically, their song kind of changes. And there's all kinds of people that are around that person that really like their song, and they're all just like really into that person's song. But when their song changes, you suddenly notice that those people are not digging your song anymore. And they're like, where are those people? They seem to have gone. But there's always the old faithfuls that no matter what, there's always a few bars they're going to like in your song, and they're going to stick around for the music because they're there for the long run. But it's interesting because I think sometimes when you do meet somebody that just has the same kind of patterning or the same complementary song to you, there is this kind of fit, there is this recognition of each other through these beautiful water bodies that we are, where you just have this deep knowing that person recognizes you and you recognize them. And I don't think it's any coincidence that we see each other through these 99% liquid eye lenses. They always say, that the eyes are the windows to the soul. Well, the eyes are this beautiful liquid lens that when we look through them at another, at a beloved, at a lover, at somebody that we adore, I think there is this magnetism and this energy and this patterning and this music that happens all simultaneously when we really experience ourselves through another. And that's the thing, is we're always mirrors of each other, good and bad. I think that's another reference to water, as the water really is also a mirror. If we don't shake it up too much, if we let it be still, finally we can see ourselves.
Man, so many. It's like encoded information. There's like bits of this and that I love it. Amazing, amazing. Let me ask you this. So when you say a song, I know what you meant, but can you go in a little bit deeper to explain that? Because it's an important concept for people to get.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I often talk to you because you already know, you
Yeah.
already understand what I'm talking about. Well, we all have our own frequency, our own vibration, um, our own personality, our own energy, our own kind of state of being that we move around in this world with. And we're all so unique, and that's what's so fascinating, beautiful about us all. And when I think about music, I think about something that resonates. So there's always a song, there's always one song that somebody's heard that just makes them feel something.
Yeah.
The amount of times I've been driving, and many people have had this experience where you're like driving in the car and you're thinking about the mortgage or the children or the money or the this or the relationship or the whatever you're thinking about, and it's causing you some stress. And then all of a sudden on the radio, you suddenly hear like this old song that you love, and it's like, oh my God, I've heard that song for ages, and and you turn it up, and you just and you're suddenly taken out of your thinking mental space and into a feeling space immediately, because music cuts through the bullshit so
Yeah.
fast,
Cuts through the
and
chase. Yeah.
immediately can shift you energetically. And so suddenly you can be going, oh my, you're in the moment. You're like getting your groove on, or you're thinking about whatever that thing was. It takes you straight back to a time in your life or a person that you experienced that with. And then suddenly that stops, and there's been a shift, there's been a change. And that is the power of sound, it's the power of music, and it's the power of emotions. And so by meaning that we have a song, I think that we pull many different notes into us over experience,
Just
over
like
time of
cymatics, which is
experience.
kind of like what you were saying before.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just real quick too, so people know, cymatics is essentially taking tones or vibrations and different tones, different vibrations, different frequencies, and then seeing the patterns, the different geometric patterns that are created in water. Essentially, that's a basics of what cymatics is. But what you're saying is that all these natural elements of just the way we incorporate and listen to the music or whatever, essentially it's like cymatics forming within us and
We're a
creating.
giant we're a giant receiver for sound, and also we're creating it. And so every single time you say something or sing something, we're creating that sound vibration. And anyone that's watched any of our podcasts will know, by molecular count, we're 99% water. And by volume, as an adult, we're about 70%. And sound travels faster through water than it does through air. So whenever you're speaking or saying something or listening to music, it's why we get goosebumps, if
Yes.
music touches us, because
Yes.
it has kind of bypassed our brain, and it just lets us feel. And those tingly kind of goosebumpy feelings is like the power of emotion. I
Yes.
love that about us.
Love that about us
It's
too.
so
And
cool.
it stimulates ASMR, which is autonomic sensory meridian response, which is, like in my own, sometimes I'll listen to music or when I do my throat singing or my Tai Chi stuff, I stimulate it and I get it going through toning and I can perpetuate it. Like sometimes we just feel it randomly and we're like, oh my God, what is that? It's like chills. We're like, oh, I love it, but you can really focus on sustaining it, and I just channel it all through my body and it's like amazing. It's fantastic.
But see, but that's the beauty. That's the passion too.
Yes.
It's like when it can, but it can move you in the other direction. There's this great. I would recommend, if it's on. It's bound to be on YouTube somewhere. I used to watch years ago this show called Father Ted. It's about this. He's like some kind of. I think he's like an Irish priest or something, and it's a comedy. And anyway, so Father
Is
Ted
it a New
is,
Zealand show or
huh?
it's a New Zealand show or
No, it's not.
okay.
I think it was British or something.
Okay.
And And it was quite well known. Father Ted's no longer with us, unfortunately.
Mm.
But anyway, so Father Ted was trying to like save this priest that was wanting to kill himself because it was all just too much and he hated his life. And so Father Ted like talked him down from this rooftop, and like no one wanted to hang out with this priest that was so miserable. And Father Ted, well, okay, I'll come here. And he took him under his wing and he took him back to his little parish. And he started playing. Father Ted was really happy about this idea that he was going to go and live in America and be a cool priest doing something in the States. Can't remember the details. But anyway, he was like, Father T was super happy, and he was playing Shaft. I don't know if anyone knows that song. It's kind of, I think it's like Curtis Mayfield or something. He's playing Shaft. It's kind of like and so Father Ted's like getting into the groove, he's really happy, and this miserable priest starts cheering up, and the music starts like cheering the miserable priest up, and so they're all having this great time, and then so the priest is suddenly, right, oh, I don't need you anymore, I'm out to like save the world, and he's all cheered up. And so Father Ted's great, gets him on the bus, he's going to the bus to this other parish or wherever, and the bus driver starts playing this really sad REM song, and it's just like, and you see this priest, the energy's going, oh no, and he's all like miserable again. But it was all done in tongue in cheek and all rather funny. But the power of music, it showed that so clearly in such a way whereby we need to be mindful too of not getting stuck too much sometimes when we're miserable, listening to really, really sad music, because it can hold us down, how it hold us there. And I've done that. When I was a teenager, I loved to do that.
Yeah.
I was like so emotional. Like there's some weird part of us that almost wants to stay sad, and that music's able to like keep us that way.
Yeah.
And it's such a strange thing, because it takes so much energy to be sad, and it's so much easier to actually be happy, but to transition from sad to happy seems like it's almost like a battle that happens in some people's hearts.
Oh man, okay, we're gonna get into some good stuff. I love it. Everything. It's funny how it's. So let's just go back. So the personal song, is essentially Venus. You want to say?
It's like a keys of life. It's like the keys of life.
Okay.
It's like, we have all these beautiful keys that are specific to us. Hi, Venus.
Excuse me, Owen. I want to show this face. This is a fluid, emotional kitty. She's so cute.
Hi, Venus. Cutie.
She's so happy. She's so good girl.
She's so cute.
She's always a joy to bring on film. So
yeah,
I want to have a Venus cam for her so people can just watch what she does, because her behavior is unbelievable. She just does the funniest things. Like, but
it is cute.
All right.
Sorry. Yeah.
No. We're gonna tie this into some serious, powerful stuff. So, the song, okay, your personal song.
I just think we give off our own sort of vibration, and that vibration is not just one vibration. We're multidimensional people. So, by taking all the vibrations that are within us, like our heartbeat is one thing, but then all the rest of our organs are different things, and then our thoughts are creating, different energy, and there's all this movement of the blood and the flow in our body, and everybody's having a different experience. It's like I've said in another podcast, we have this blue planet that we're living on, but also this blue planet inside of us, and each one is unique and individual, just like looking into somebody's iris. Each one, it kind of looks like some kind of nebula or something like out in the universe, and so each person's so individual, but we're changing too with our thoughts. Like a real one change of perception can change your life. Really, with one huge change of perception can change your life in a moment. So with that change of perception will come a new tone to you, a new sound to you, a new level of vibration to you. And that's kind of what I mean by our song or our pattern.
Love it. Okay. So, with that in mind for the listeners, she said something else, and then I'm going to try to tie it in from my perspective with all this. So, with the idea of the personal song, right, we get attuned to a song that becomes ours. It's just what we express as a result of everything that's happened to us and kind of what we perpetuate. But in reference to what you just said about having listen, like say you're listening to music, or you're listening to something that's dark and makes you sad, and it takes a lot more energy to get out of that, when you're stuck in it. But let's look at this, because this is a big deal, because we don't understand so much about human development and conditioning and perception as individuals, that we unknowingly become conditioned by the circumstances of our lives. When as we're in our mother's womb developing, we hear her talk, we hear things going on. We don't consciously know what those things mean, but it's setting the stage for us to further become conditioned for whatever that life waiting outside of our mother's going to be. Then we grow up, we start incorporating all these belief systems. Those belief systems trigger certain feelings, thoughts. So that, and then eventually we have our position and what we believe. And all this is essentially frequency. It's energy resonating at a certain level that creates a certain expression. And most people, if they're not aware of how this process works, become almost enslaved or trapped or an island into themselves, to use a water analogy here. And the reality is, this is doesn't have to be like that. The reality is that we have been taught to think that we need an external person, place, or thing to make us feel internally a certain way. And most of us just take that as normal. And so we live in this life like, okay, I'm going to make this much money and then I'll be happy, or then I'm going to buy this car, or then I need a relationship and they're going to look like this and be like that. And that's what's going to make me happy. But we're never, ever happy. None of that stuff. It's gratification. We feel pleasure for a little bit and then it moves on, and it's never wholeness. So here's the major wake up call to all this, is that we can generate our feelings from inside of us without any external stimuli whatsoever. And in fact, you can generate feelings inside of you that become so strong, so powerful, so beautiful, that you start to affect the world around you with them. But nobody taught us that we could do that. So now we're talking about this and we're revealing it and helping people. But in my instance, okay, like the people who know me, and for those who don't know me, I've been to hell and back. I've been through some, like you, like I've had my ass handed to me a number of times, and those situations can really, really reinforce the victim mentality in you. But if you are having a greater perspective than this limited version of the victimized self that's kind of easy to get into, based upon the fact that a lot of how you feel is the result of your external environment conditioning you to be that way, then the way above that is to open your awareness, open your perception, and start choosing to feel elevated emotions like love, joy, appreciation. These are all heart based elements. And when you start feeling these and you practice feeling them, then you find out that you can sustain these feelings throughout the day and create an entirely new song than the old song that's been playing over and over and just skipping a lot. And so that's kind of where we're going with these podcasts and with everything we're doing, is with Veda's work with water, with my work with consciousness and retraining habits, rewiring perception, going into these deep coherent states from the inside out and breathing new life into our own perception of self and reality. We are creating a new song, a new earth, a new identity. And when we have gotten ourselves to that point where we're generating these feelings, we're feeling good, then suddenly we're living from an internal state much more predominantly than we are an external state. And that's a very different way of living because you're no longer subject to people, places, things, the environment. The environment is no longer controlling how you feel. You are taking responsibility for how you feel. You're holding yourself to a standard where you're generating feelings that become strong and beautiful and bring out your potential, but then you're taking it a step level by sustaining them. And then that becomes something with to the effect of where you go out in the world and the environment's affecting you. Now you're affecting the environment. You're
Mm.
affecting the people around you. And I've put this to the test. Veda's put it to the test. It works. It works. And
Yeah,
the water in you reflects that beautifully. So,
it does. I my sometimes, as all children do this, they can have their moments, when they're just having a meltdown, and there's often an expectation of that comes from especially my youngest son. Although he's really changed now, he's changed a lot. But he always used to kind of expect me to to kind of to not cheer him up when he's sad, but just to make him happy. And I would remind him. I said, I'm responsible to love you. I'm responsible to feed you and make sure that you're, all those general stuff. He said, but I said, I'm not responsible for your happiness. You own that. That you own that.
that was one of the first things you told me when we first met. And I remember that hit me so hard when you said that. So, thank you for bringing this up again now. It's so
Well,
important. Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, because we think like you just gave that big list of this thing that we mostly all experienced, where, oh, if I achieve this, then it'll make me happy. If I achieve this, or if this many people give me this many likes on Facebook or on Instagram or whatever, then that's going to make me happy. But yeah, it's going to affect you certain, things inside of the body. These little hits of adrenaline
Yeah.
that will kind of temporarily make you feel something. But my question is, why do you need that? Why? What is missing that makes you feel that any more? So if we're full already, we're already receiving nectar, from the divine, and that's what's entering us. That's a never-ending pitcher that is always being poured. And usually we just have like an umbrella up and it's going around, but it's always ready. We take the umbrella down and we're willing to receive that. Then there's a part where then all of a sudden the emptier we get, the fuller we are. It's like we empty out all the stuff, the rubbish that we don't need, that all of this conditioning and all these kinds of old ways of thinking of it being in need and being in lack and being in fear. And then suddenly we're like open to being able to receive. You have to empty to become full. And so it's like the more we actually release, the more we can receive, but from a different place. And so when I think about, okay, I'm very questioning about myself these days. So if I start to feel or something triggers me and makes me feel something, I'm like, the part of me that's the observer of myself, I'm like, okay, so that's interesting. I wonder why you're feeling like that. So I've learned not to react immediately, but you can feel it. Like if somebody hurts you and you can feel that feeling, and there's this burning in your chest, and there's all kinds of stuff that could easily just come out. But it's like, okay, stop, just hold off for a bit, give yourself like some time to process that, and like, where is that coming from? Why are you feeling like that? And then firstly, is it real? is what I'm feeling really real, or is this just my emotional response to somebody not saying something I don't like? Or, and that's their opinion. Why does it matter to me? Why do I have to be right? Like, what whack is there in me?
Yeah.
And so I'm often very, very mindful now of like really appreciating whenever I do get that experience, because it helps me to grow, and it helps me. We have a choice. We always have a choice of like how we respond. And the most honest, or authentic people will say something like, I'm feeling really triggered by this, and I need some time to really process it, because I want to I want to honor what you're saying, but I'm feeling really hurt. I'm feeling all this stuff coming up for me, and I need to look at that and feel into that, and talk to you when I'm not going to project on you, because we're always projecting our stuff, especially from past relationships. We almost have an expectation that comes because of the patterns that have formed, that we then expect somebody to be the same as that last person, but they're not. They're so not. But we do have a tendency sometimes to attract these repeated tests, if somebody can like seem so different when you meet them, and then all of a sudden you're learning the same lesson, and it's like, but
Wouldn't you say it's because that pattern's in you, right? That,
yeah,
and so
instead
you're
of being,
like, you're perceiving it through the perception of your own patterning from your previous. You're bringing the past pattern into the present relationship or experience.
it's it, and that's why the work inside of you is the ultimate work you will ever do, because the last thing anyone wants really is to be in, especially as you get older and what you start looking for in relationships differs from what you did when you were 18,
Yeah.
whereby we there's a kind of a primal drive that, and often it's, even though you're not thinking about procreating, Mother Nature is all about that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and often it's opposites attract, because of that actually gives you the strongest gene pool. They want strong babies.
Yeah.
And so often it's like there's some
Yeah.
really different genetics
Very
going
little
on there.
intellect or feelings can be involved at that
Yeah.
age. It's just
and and
burning loin feelings.
And so you have this kind of this lust attraction,
Yeah.
and that's, don't get, then that chemical concoction right there is like so hard to move past, because it
So
just kind of
powerful.
like takes over your whole body full of
Yeah.
chemicals, and it
Yeah.
makes you stay in places really not healthy for you sometimes too, because you believe that you're in love. And why is it that we think that being in love means we have to be treated like a doormat? And I don't understand that. I love you. I'm going to take all your crap, and you can treat me like this. And if I stay, maybe you'll finally see how much I love you. That doesn't make sense.
Yes.
But I've done it. So
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah. Oh,
It's not
yeah.
like I haven't done that.
Yeah.
And there comes a time where you start having to actually really look at what the word love means to you. And I think it's a very abused word, because just as easily as I can say that, I love somebody deeply, I can turn around and go, oh, I love this meal. I mean, this
Yeah.
I love that puppy in the window. Oh, I love this. And it's like, okay, it's good to be in a state of love.
Yeah.
And if that is your loving vibration, that's amazing. But I also think it's like, what does love really mean to you? And what do you want? How do you want to be loved? And how do you love yourself? And I think that, we are this incredible liquid water system, this water world right inside of us, with all of this potential to be anything we could possibly imagine we could, and not even imagine, way past even the imagination of
Yeah.
what we could be. And yet sometimes we get so kind of limited in our thinking, and we think, We think and that's the part that comes with emotions. We start thinking, our thoughts can affect us so much, that pattern of thinking, like I'm not good enough. Oh, I don't deserve that. I'm not attractive enough. And all the I'm nots. And that's your mind. That's your mind telling your body something, and your body will have a response to that. But your body will also have a response to, I am beautiful, I'm kind, I'm worthy, I'm loving, and it will have an impact. But I did something fascinating for a friend the other day. I'll just share it without giving any names, but it was his birthday, and so I did some tests he didn't know I was going to do. He asked me to leave 2 petri dishes out, well 3, but we only showed people 2. One to send birthday wishes into, and one were the wishes for the world. And so he got all his friends and things to send these 2 messages, and then I had one where water was just going to respond, and so I was going to freeze them crystallographically and see what the patterns showed. But the interesting part was that I put an extra petri dish that no one knew about beside the 2 that were receiving this information, to see if they would be impacted at all. And this is very relative to people and emotions. So what was fascinating was that all 3 of the petri dishes, the 2 that were, one was receiving the happy birthday, one that was receiving the wishes for the world, and one where water was simply kind of going to give his own message, or her own message. And so each one showed a heart in the imagery, which was beautiful, a very specific shape
In
of
the
heart.
crystals once it was frozen?
Yes. But beside the water that was just sitting beside the water that was receiving the wishes for his birthday, the structure had been like this horrible, yucky, disordered tap water, which had got so many issues. If anyone wants to look at my work and see what that looks like, you can find a link.
Yes.
But so this disordered tap water, but then it had completely healed. I filmed it. It had one of the biggest, most beautiful hexagons, and hexagons depict a healed or perfect state of water, right beside it. And then the one that had the wishes for the world also had a beautiful hexagon. It had completely changed its structure. Also, that was tap water, and it had a little smiley face in it. And so the impact of that shows that even if you're just sitting beside someone who is of a higher vibration, who is giving out their love, who is sharing their gift, it's impacting you. It's affecting you. It's healing you. Yeah. So you are also doing that for others.
Repatterning you.
Sorry?
It's repatterning you.
Yeah.
It's like it's a higher level of coherence, and it's coherence entrains incoherence. It just does. It's a higher frequency, cancels out the other frequencies by incorporating it into it. But go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I always remember, because I used to have a wellness center years ago, and I had a lot of people going, it's just me. Like, what can I possibly do? I think I need to go on an experience and learn from a teacher and learn all of these things and do all of these things. And I just feel like it's just me. I can't really do anything. I don't really know what I could possibly do for the world, and blah, blah, blah. And we often feel like that, because we do feel like a drop in the ocean sometimes, and what can we do to make a difference in the world? And we all know we've got something to give.
Yeah.
And I remember being in India, and my spiritual teacher, he gave a talk, and it was translated from Hindi into English later. And he was saying that, he was talking about all the saints and the people that were essentially vessels that were receiving divine inspiration constantly. And he was saying that for those that are in constant receiving in that way, their energy, their frequency, their level of vibration it far exceeds just the level of where their heart might reach. It travels so far, almost like halfway around the world. He said real, true coherence and vibrational true love. Like someone who is truly in their most loving vibration will impact people they will never meet. They touch people, infect people, affect water around the world, animals, creatures, plants, birds, trees, people, everyone will be washed in that vibration. And he said it was, I don't remember how many, but so much more impactful than someone who was experiencing the exact opposite. And he said, that it's not that because often we think, I remember thinking that, hearing this a lot when I was in India, and there's a teacher, and the teacher is always there teaching. And we often think, oh, well, maybe in another 5 lifetimes, maybe I'll one day become a guru and I'll be able to do it. But no, it doesn't have to be 5 lifetimes. That's why they're teaching you. They're saying you have everything you need, everything you can be. Just empty all what you don't need out, and everything you do need will come in. It's just stop being afraid to let go. I guess that's the key.
Amazing. What do you think, the way you just said that, there's obviously different approaches and maybe different strokes work for different folks, but do you feel like emptying yourself first is a prerequisite to then become full, or instead is it working on filling yourself up and then letting what was preventing you from being filled up just go out on its own, almost like a detox?
Well, I think ultimately we're always a flushing system. We actually are.
Yeah.
Nothing stays within us. It's always being flushed out. Like the liquids are always being flushed out. The rest is always being taken away. We are not unaccustomed to things moving out of us.
Yeah.
Tears coming out of us, sweat coming out of us, all kinds of stuff coming out of us.
Yeah, everything.
And I think we can be very self-generating. So, and by that I mean it's like I think, and I'm purely speaking from my perspective, and there are many perspectives, and I'm not claiming to be right or wrong or any of that stuff. We're just having a discussion, and that's the nice thing about that, is that we can have these discussions without having big triggers going off, because neither one of us needs to prove anything to the other.
Yeah, no. This is made to uplift each other and uplift everybody else. That's what it is.
Yeah, so I've always I tend to think about the water inside of me, and when I go into a deep type of meditation, there's a place inside the tiny space of my heart which is always a mirror of water. And so when I go to look inside the mirror of water, it's like I go and I see myself, and I look at myself looking at myself, and then I just get my finger and I put my finger into the water, and I see all the ripples that formed from that, recognizing that every thought, everything I do, every single heartbeat that happens in my body is having a ripple effect in the world. And what is it that I want to do in this world to make a difference? And then realizing in those moments that we came into this world alone, and we will leave this world alone on our own journey. And why are we here? And so I've come to many thoughts about that. But one of them is that I think one of the greatest gifts that we can leave behind is the memories and the love in other people. I think that that's what we are. We're these walking bodies of memories. We're either living in our imagination of the future, or we're living in our imagination of in our remembering of the past.
Yeah.
But really all we have is right now.
Yeah.
And so right now, you and I are having a discussion, and I'm a living, breathing body, and it's like being reminded that there is like this heart beating inside of us. There is this life we've got right now, and I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I don't know what's going to happen in an hour. I have an educated guess, but at any moment we could be gone. And this is the truth. At any moment we can be gone. And what is it that we want to leave behind? And so if I was to leave now, I know that I would leave a lot of memories behind in a lot of people. And then I know that is one of my biggest purposes, because my mum died in 99. I think of her
Mm.
every day,
Yeah, she was
most
so
amazing
close to
angel
you.
in the world.
Yeah.
And she left all of these memories in me, and I'm so grateful for that, because that's what we have. That's
Yeah.
what we have at the end of the day. When we even look back at our life is just moments, moments. And I don't like to remember all the times I've cleaned the lunch boxes out and cleaned the toilets, and cleaned up
Yeah.
vomit and diarrhea and God only knows what, having children, you've done it all. They're not my highlights, but they're not my lowlights either. But when
Yeah.
we look back at our life, we tend to only look at the highest points and the lowest points when we're talking about our life. We don't talk about our daily, day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, so what is it that makes the high so high and the low so low? It's because of the way we felt. It's
Yes.
our emotions.
Yes.
And that's why the power of emotion is so impactful, I think, to us as people.
Amazing. Yes, that was unbelievable. Just everything you said was so beautiful and it's so perfect. And a lot of it is the vicissitudes of these ups and downs and everything. And we it's funny, like you said, like we'll remember like this super impactful thing that happened, whether it's negative or positive, how it, whether we perceive it as negative or positive. And the reason why is because when something happens, something amazing happens or something terrible happens, our body produces a flood of chemicals that
Mm.
either fight or flight or the opposite, like serotonin, all the endorphins come out and you just feel amazing. And so those chemicals produce emotions. They produce feelings. That's what feelings are. They're chemical signals being created by the body. And we consciously, with our minds, because we're only very moderately consciously aware of what's happening with our own experience. We're coming into a time and a place where those of us who are quote unquote awakening are realizing that we have the ability to activate dormant energy centers in our mind and body that allow us to begin to perceive a lot more of what most aren't perceiving. It just flies right
Mm.
by their head. But it's in this awakening that's happening to people, and they're becoming aware that you can really tune in and modulate these emotions and be able to not, I don't want to say control, but co-create in alignment with your higher self to create something in this world so that you're forming a new memory. Like something happens, you created it, did it, and you're like, oh my God, it feels amazing. That's awesome. But then you have the memory of the new thing you created. And so that's a new memory that gives you the confidence to keep going forward and creating again. And when you have another win or another victory of creating something beautiful and powerful, you just keep going and you keep doing that. And so we are at a place where we're no longer being subjected to just the way things are and being a victim of the environment and a victim of other people and triggered by everything. We're doing the opposite. We are choosing to become empowered from the inside out. And the fluid, that's what we call it, taking a deep dive into the fluidity of emotions, I think is what the episode
Yeah,
was called. I didn't have the whole thing
yeah,
before.
that's
But this is what we're doing. We are taking a deep dive into the fluidity of emotions and learning how to because when you are like ruled by your emotions, things aren't really looking that good for that person. They're just They don't know anything. They're lost, they're confused, they're hurt, they're this. But when you are the master of your emotions, when you're exercising emotional intelligence and really learning how to feel, that is changing the water systems of your body. The patterns that are going to be in your body are going to reflect these elevated states, because when you're just subjected to the environment, you're in a state of fight or flight or stress. The stress hormones will be produced, and the patterns of your body and the water systems in your body are going to reflect that. And so you're essentially creating that because it's a frequency that your body's holding. It's the structure. But when you get into these elevated states of being and you sustain them, then you recondition the body's water systems and all the systems of the body to reflect these new patterns, these new crystallographic structures. And then that attracts like circumstances or people or places or things that are in harmony with whatever that crystallographic reflection from the inside out of you is. And I feel like, to me, this is a major point of everything we're talking about here, and a takeaway for people. What do you think?
Of course. Well,
Yes.
I mean, it's I recently just saw a picture of that was shared. It was a before and after, a 3-year difference. There was two. They were separate posts, but for some reason they were somehow linked. One was of this man who you could see him, he looked healthy and well, just a young man. And then 3 years later, you see a photo of him after he'd just come back from war. And he is a completely different person. He'd aged, his face was so different. Everything about him, you could hardly recognize him from the person he was 3 years ago. And then to the separate post there was this lady, and she looked, I don't know, she looked like she must have had a harder life, maybe. And then
Weathered.
you saw that 6 months after just like cutting out bad food and starting drinking good water and stopping smoking and start cutting out all this different stuff and actually really launching into a very healthy way of eating, has shifted also her way of thinking, helped her do that. And you saw this woman. It was impossible to see.
Sorry.
Is that true?
Yeah, sorry about that. Hold on.
Oh, oops. It was like looking at it was a completely different woman.
Yeah.
And so it can show you how in such a short period of time you can go from one thing to another, depending on what your environment is or how you're affected or how you perceive something or what you choose to do with your life. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
so
Yeah.
it is that thing where one of the pitfalls I think that happens for people is that we care so much about how other people will respond or what other people will think. So we conform to kind of lessen ourselves somehow, to not really speak our truth because we're so afraid of somebody's reaction.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of people now that are starting to really step into their true authentic selves, and they're going,
Yeah.
no, I can see how that happened. I can see people that have been like that, and that doesn't feel good for me. I don't want that for the world. I don't want that for myself. I really feel like I've got something to say and I want to be heard, and it's not coming necessarily from an egotistical point of view, although for some people maybe.
Yeah.
But when it's not,
Yeah.
when it really is just like, this is just who I am. This is who I am. Think what you want. But I think, honestly, in there's been, even so through social media, that I've noticed some big changes. One of them is that people used to make very professional videos, they'd have to have all the lighting right, everything perfect, and da-da-da-da-da,
Yeah.
and that was what you got. But now people are on their phones just doing whatever, rocking themselves and just whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
And we kind of are more likely to trust somebody and like somebody who is being their true self. I mean, I do. I would rather be with somebody that just totally owns their their
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, they don't need high
Yeah.
tech. They don't need all the fancy bells and whistles and all. Exactly, they're just being real, raw, honest.
Yeah, and that's what I think this world is starting to desire more. Is like, because everyone knows that there's a lot of stuff going on in the world which isn't making us feel good. So what does make us feel good is when we feel heard and seen and appreciated for exactly who we are. And so, well, we have to be who we are to really feel that. And if somebody's going to love us, we've got to show them who we are so that they can love all of
Oh
us.
my God.
That's
Yes.
the key too, I think.
Amazing. I love it. Well, we are over an hour now,
Oh, okay.
but this has been an incredible talk. We've covered some awesome stuff, really empowering stuff here. Amazing. I felt like I wanted to go back a little bit and ask you, and maybe if it's not, no problem, we can, if you don't feel like you have a good response or anything for it, no problem. But in the beginning we talked about the honeymoon phase, like when somebody starts feeling strong feelings for somebody and then suddenly they don't. What's up with that?
It is interesting, isn't it? But that's conditional love because we haven't loved ourselves unconditionally. So how can we love somebody else that way? But also, if you're constantly looking for somebody else to complete you, or somebody else to make you happy, or somebody else to like look good with, which I've seen that happen,
Yo, yeah, that's a lot of
you
it.
know, um,
Crazy.
it's not based. It's not necessarily. It's not really a permanent fixture of that kind of relationship. Because I think what we want, I mean, I often think of love in a little bit like a tuning fork. I know this is going to sound strange,
No.
but you know how you have like a tuning fork and it's tuned to a certain tone, and you ding it and it starts out loud and then it goes quiet. Well, what you notice within that is that the tone, the tone is exactly the same, except that it's showing itself in a higher vibration or a quieter vibration. And if you really truly love, especially if you have that love for yourself, then you have that tone of love. And it can be expressed loudly, it can be expressed quietly, but always the tone is the same. And so I think that when you're looking outside and I mean, lust is just something we all can appreciate because there's so many beautiful looking people in the world.
Yeah.
And we have this chemical attraction, and there is so much belief system that goes on that's taught or
And primal
perceived.
conditioning. There's so much primal conditioning that even it just, most people don't have any idea what it is, and it takes over all rationale.
It does. It does. And so, having that understanding, I guess, is like, because it is so powerful. The power of sexual attraction
Yeah.
is extremely potent,
Yeah.
and it can just, and nobody's really exempt. Well, not many people are exempt from that,
Yeah.
and it can make you do ridiculously stupid things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so interesting because it's not always. Sometimes it works out great,
Yeah.
but it's very rare. It's
Yeah, it
very
is
rare.
very, it usually derails relationships. I mean, love crimes, there's all kind, like, absolutely. And
Well, yeah, to that part, but I think you need to have chemistry. I think chemistry is important. I don't think we
yeah,
can deny that. You still want to be attracted to the person you're with, and there's a lot of stuff we could talk about water and chemistry, but I won't go there because we don't have much time.
yeah,
But we've got your chemistry, then you have commonality, things that you actually share in common, and then you have communication. And I think that that's the most key thing is being able to really communicate kindly to each other. And it doesn't. I think that that's so important. Is that if you really love somebody, then you want to spend the time to get to know them, to understand them, to know what they like, to know how they have their tea, to know whatever their thing is, the
Yeah.
little tiny things that make them them. And
Hmm.
so it doesn't mean to say that it's going to always last.
Yeah.
But you know what? Neither that many things we see in this world aren't going to last. But what lasts, I think, are the memories. And so what we learn from that and how we have conducted ourselves within that relationship. And I think that if you go in with the right intention, then that's really what you want to look back on. It's like, why what was my intention when I went into this relationship, and was I honest about it?
Mm. My gosh. Wow. Yeah. Love it. Well, how do you
Yeah.
feel? Go ahead.
No, no, you
Okay.
ask.
So I'm thinking, unless there's anything else you want to say, it would be pretty cool for us to end this with our own definition of what love is to us. How do you feel about
Okay.
that?
Sure. I don't know what I'm going to say, so you go first.
I was hoping you'd say that actually. I'm just kidding.
Oh, good.
Um, I love this question. People have asked me this before, and that's why I'm actually ready for it. And it's always different. I'll say I don't have anything memorized, but essentially, love to me is getting so hyper aware of this energy that is animating my being. And from that place of awareness, loving it, feeling it, just allowing my own perceptive awareness to become immersed in the awareness of this energy field that is animating me, and just cultivating that and developing it and feeling it deeper and deeper and deeper until I can feel it all through my heart. I can feel it sending signals up to my brain, and my brain is then sending signals down through my spinal column to all the organs of my body, which then reflects in I'm feeling my entire energy field in coherence with my heart and all the other organs. And I am suddenly pure energy. I'm the wave in quantum physics. And to me, that is love. Okay, or sorry, that's the beginning of love, because when I'm in that expanded state and it's all whole and complete and doing it, then and I'm no longer I at that point. Then this field that is allowing me to exist starts to become coherent with the source, you could say, of where it comes from. And that is a love unlike any other love that I could ever imagine from a sheerly physical perspective. And that is the type, that's to me, that is rising in love. And that is the type of love that I seek to achieve, to develop, to nurture, to be harmonized with above and beyond all else. And then from that place, I love to interact with others in a way where we bring that out in each other. For whatever degree anybody's at, it doesn't even matter what level or anything. Like we, I've noticed it because I spend so much time doing that. That my my relationships reflect that at whatever capacity, and it's amazing to me to do that. So to me, that's my definition of love.
That's so beautiful. I think everybody's definition is going to differ, but there's always going to be similarities. But for me, I guess for me, love is service. It's called in Hindi. It's called sewa. It is devotional service. So I feel that when I'm in my most loving expression, I am both receiving and giving at the same time, and that there isn't any part of me that is in need, because my desire to give is so big. And the real beloved of ours, the true beloved, the lover beloved relationship of the divine, is always going to shower their nectar down through us and into us, and will never let us be completely void of love. But love is truly what we're made of. And so for all of the receiving that I receive from the beloved, then let me be in service always, just giving that on to them and to others.
Okay, let me change my definition. How do I
No!
serve you? I'm going to take all that energy that is serving me and that I share with others, and I'm going to serve you.
Oh,
Oh,
God.
that was beautiful. My God, thank you. That's it, perfect. Perfect. Like your definition just so perfectly balanced what I just expressed, and like, wow, thank you. My God.
No, thank you. Well, we better wind this up, I guess. Thank you to
Yes.
everybody that's
Yes.
still with us.
Yeah. I'm sure they are. This was really
Yeah.
engaging, and I'm sure people will go back and listen to it again. I'm going to. It's that good. So, okay, everybody. So, this was the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast. And tonight, this episode was titled Taking a Deep Dive into the Fluidity of Emotions, where we went right into the shallows, all the way to the deepest depths of the deepest oceans on foreign alien planets, and really got to the core of what it means to love, what it means to feel, all the different layers and levels of such. So, super powerful episode. Veda and I love doing this. We both just, it felt amazing to me. I'm guessing it felt
Oh,
amazing to you based upon the way you
yeah.
felt.
Yes.
So, love this video, share it, tag it with people who want to hear this and see it. And oh, there's your kitty. Oh, my kitty's laying down. Oh my God, look at him, Jiva.
Jiva. He's gangster cat right now. He's
He's a
just got,
gank.
he's been out beating up half the
Oh
neighborhood.
my God, I'm gonna have to do this. Wait, I gotta bring Venus. They gotta meet.
Oh my God. You want to see another kitty?
Venus is sleeping, so she's probably not real happy about this. But look, Venus,
Can you see the other
look,
pussycat?
it's Jiva. It's Jiva. Oh, look at this. Oh. Oh.
Right? Right. Jiva and Venus.
Oh man. Oh,
She's
sorry, sweet Ash. She's like, man, I was sleeping. You had to wake me up for that. Oh man. So you can find Veda's work, The Secret Intelligence of Water, her new book that she came out with. I believe it's a life-changing book, because when you see the visual representation of how thoughts, feelings, consciousness, other people affect water from thousands of miles away even, and how water communicates with Veda, it really just cracks open the head, opens up the heart, and kind of forces you. I mean, you can be in denial if you want, but essentially it forces you to really reconsider the extent of our own powers. So you can find that VedaAustin.com. Get it. You will be so grateful you did. I mean it. You'll have these pictures plastered on your wall like I do. I'm just like, oh, they're amazing. And then me, of course, for those who know me, you can find me in my new blog where I've released my new book, I'mAwakeNowWhat.com. My book, The Fight to Enlight, Initiation Through the Heart is the Only Way to Win. It is a memoir written from an objective perspective, so that it's about the reader and the human condition as a whole. Tourmaline Spring, my spring water site, livingnuts.com, my certified organic sprouted nut site. But Veda and I have visions for a much more fluid, loving, kind world. And our co-collaboration with this podcast and our other projects represent that. So thank you, everybody, so much for your time. We love you. And until next time.
See you later. Ah, you're so good.
I'm getting better. It's taken a few episodes, but all right. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Integrative Science of Water and Consciousness podcast with Veda Austin and Seth Pruzansky. If you'd like to know more about Veda Austin, please go to vedaustin.com. To learn more about Seth and Tourmaline Spring, go to tourmalinespring.com and I'mAwakeNowWhat.com. You'll also be able to find copies of this podcast and back issues at all of the websites we listed above. Thank you.